Sarnai. As usual, we are gathered here today to listen to another dispensation of the Lord Buddha's teaching. Before we do so, let us take a moment to observe the 5 precepts, and in doing so remind ourselves that, as a matter of fact, we are yet having to observe these precepts. The virtue is not still part of our system, it's not part of our DNA, it's not part of our fabric yet. So this is why we are having to observe the precepts. So, bearing that in mind, in the hope that through observing these precepts, in the hope that through listen to this Dhamma, may the precepts, may the virtue that underlie these precepts be part of who I am, be part of my sentiments, be part of my consciousness, be part of me, in such a way that I may never have to observe these precepts ever again. With that hope in mind, let us all take a moment to observe the precepts and prepare ourselves to listen to this sermon. Can I ask you all to recite the Namaskara 3 times and all together? Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saranāgamaṇaṃ sampunnaṃ, Pānāti pātā veramani, Sikkhapaдаṃ samadhiyāmi, Adinādāna veramani, Sikkhapaдаṃ samadhiyāmi, Kāmesu micchācārā veramani, Sikkhapadaṃ samadhiyāmi, Musāvādā veramani, Sikkhapadaṃ samadhiyāmi, Suramēraya majjapamā daṭṭhānā veramani, Sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Tisaranena saddhing pancha silang dhammang sadhukang surakkitang khatva appamadena sampadeta. Okay, you may now all be seated. As usual, also before we commence, let us take a moment to pay homage to the Supremely Enlightened One, the Blessed One, the Perfect One, the Peerless One, the Unparalleled One, the Unvanquished One, the Supremely Enlightened Samma Sambuddhajana Nuhanse. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. And as usual, reflecting on the fact that today we have the gift of this Dhamma, although throughout our infinitely long history in samsara we have not had that opportunity, there are those who would have helped us, supported us, assisted us in many different ways and shapes and forms to be where we are today, to have been born human in some occasions. So today it is our duty to afford them the opportunity that we have been afforded ourselves. And so therefore, as I now make this invitation out to all the devas, brahmas, spirits, demons and the dead, I request you all to extend that invitation out in your hearts and in your minds, sparing a thought for all those beings that you may have come past in samsara, anyone who might have helped you, supported you, assisted you in any way, shape or form, perhaps in very small and simple ways, perhaps in large and magnanimous ways. It does not matter. All beings are destitute in samsara without the gift of the Dhamma, without the refuge of the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. So, today, having received those gifts, having received the protection of the Triple Gem, let us now make an invitation to all those beings we have come past in samsara, whether they have been our friend or foe, may they be able to join us, may they be able to witness this meritorious deed. If any of them have been born in the woeful planes, may this merit help them be born in the blissful planes, and for those beings in the blissful planes, may they be able to understand and comprehend this Dhamma and be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Samanta chakravalesu atra gaccantu devata Sadhammam munirajansa sunantu saggamokkadam dhammasavana kalo ayam badanta dhammasavana kalo ayam badanta Dhammasavana kalo ayam badhanta. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, let us take a moment also to remind ourselves that although today, having received the Dhamma, our lives may have changed beyond recognition, we may not be the people who we were, perhaps a few months, maybe a few years ago, or perhaps in our previous births. And this is because we did not receive the gift of Dhamma. Having associated with ignoble ones and immoral ones, who defiled our minds with raga, dvesha, moha, that is desire, aversion and delusion, and having been blinded with avidya and tanha, which is ignorance and attachment, we may have offended, insulted and desecrated the noble ones, the Samma Sambuddhas, the Pacceka Buddhas, the Arahata Buddhas, Anagamis, Sakrudagamis, and Sotapannas, be they on the path or having attained the fruits, as well as the Buddha's ministry, the Sambuddha Shasana. For all those misdeeds that we may have directed towards them, either knowingly or unknowingly, such deeds may today hinder our progress in the Dhamma. It may block our progress in the Dhamma. So, prior to us commencing, let us all take a moment to seek forgiveness from the noble ones, as well as from the Buddha's ministry, the Sambuddha Shasana, for any insult, any offense, any desecration that we may have directed towards them. And also, let us all make a firm resolve that through the course of this sermon, if there are any gaps in our knowledge, any gaps in our understanding, in our comprehension, that keep us from attaining those noble attainments, through the course of this sermon, may I be able to fulfill those gaps. May I be able to receive the Dhamma such that I am able to close the gates of the four hells once and for all, and to do so by attaining the noble attainment of Sotapanna. And for any of you who may have already attained that, make a firm resolve that through the course of this sermon, may I be able to fulfill the remaining subsequent paths and the fruits, such that I may be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. With that firm resolve in mind, I ask you all to prepare yourselves to listen to this sermon. Okay. So we have some time restraints to work around today, and that is perfectly acceptable, by the way. In fact, I think last week I was kind of hesitant to continue past 6:30, but then I thought you've taken a lot of effort to come a long way. And like I reminded you last week, you're coming here and you're spending your most valuable assets, which is time. Not money. Time. So, I feel duty bound to make the most of your time and give you the most that I can afford you. Particularly given that I think it takes you about a couple of hours and a half hour to get here, and perhaps the same to get back. So, I just want to make sure that the time you spend here is well worth it. So, let me worry about that. I'll make sure that every moment you spend here is worthwhile, and you take away the maximum that you can take away. But from you, in return, I have I wouldn't say a favor, but I suppose it's a favor to yourselves, not me so much, is pay the most attention that you can to every word I say, and whatever we speak of, whatever we discuss here, make sure that you take the time to reflect on. Don't just take the superficial meanings. Try to dig deep, analyze every word I say, and don't take anything I say at face value. Because I don't want you to trust in me, because I could be saying anything. You know, in advertising they have this, what do they call it? Subliminal messaging. You're saying one thing on the surface, but underneath, it's a completely different message that's being delivered. Perhaps I'm doing that. This is why I say, don't take anything I say with trust, but everything I say you have to analyze, use your intelligence, check if that makes sense with your life's experiences, and see if these things that I share with you help you to put out the fires of raga, dvesha and moha, desire, aversion and delusion. Because that has to be the one and only test. That is the litmus test. That is the acid test. If it fails that, then I beg of you, do not come back here. If I start to speak such things that ignite the fires of raga, dvesha, moha in you, I beg of you, do not come back here. So you have something to do, pay attention, and make the most of it. And also perhaps a friendly suggestion. This is by no means a personal attack on anybody. I understand that you do take a lot of effort to be here, right? I mean, it's a weekend, and I'm sure there are lots of things that busy people have to do on weekends. Given that Mondays to Fridays are spent at the office, traveling up and down, and weekends are precious time that you can spend with your family, time that you can spend going on holiday, time that you can spend doing lots of other things, and yet you have decided to be here. What I would suggest is, there are sometimes environmental factors that make it difficult for you to stay awake. And sometimes this is because of things that we've done in the past. Karma is now bearing fruit. Sometimes we may have taken away other people's opportunities to listen to the Dhamma. Sometimes we might have blocked their progress in the Dhamma. Whatever. Who knows? And the thing is, when you're doing everything else, you're wide awake. But the moment you hear the word Samanta Chakravalesu, these eyelids slowly start to close. And then it's so serene, so peaceful. Until you say, Abhivadana Silis, and then they come up wide again. So this can happen, okay? And again, it's not a personal attack on anybody, but as I say, you're spending very valuable time here. So make the most of it. I think you all have at your hand's length a bottle of water, so if you feel you need to just sprinkle a few drops of water on your eyes, you can please feel free to do that. If you feel you need to just take a walk outside and come back for some fresh air, please feel free to do that. I have no qualms about that. All I want you to do is make the most of your time here. Listen to every word I say. Analyze it. See how that relates to your own lives, and make the most of your time. Is that a fair ask? Anything of that is unfair? Okay. So, it's really important that from time to time we take a pulse check. How are we doing? Where are we going? How far have we come? Are we going down the right road? Are we passing the right milestones, which indicate to us that we're on the right path? Or are we just walking away into the wilderness, not knowing where we are going, not knowing what obstacles come to us, not knowing how to overcome them? Because then it's a journey that we are on without knowing what the goal is, what the target is, where we are heading. And that's extremely dangerous. The Buddha very clearly explains that Nibbana is a path that you take after having seen what Nibbana is. You start walking on the path knowing where you're heading. You start walking down the path knowing what it is you're signing up to. Did you know what you were signing up to when you walked down the wedding aisle? Or did you find that out later on? Well, Nibbana is not a path that we can go down like that. We can't be unsure of where we are going. We have to know exactly where we are heading. So when we talk about liberation, when we talk about freedom, emancipation, all these nice words, fancy words, what do we really mean? What are we freeing ourselves from? We say, shackles of samsara. When we chant the Arya Maitri, we say, may I and all beings be freed from the shackles of samsara. What does that really mean? Is anyone holding us back in samsara? Is anyone tying us down to samsara? Who are we trying to free ourselves from? What is this freedom that you all seek? Freedom from what? Raga, dvesha, moha. Okay. Any other ideas? Kamma? Okay. Did you say karma, madam? Sorry? Doing karma. Okay. From suffering. Okay. Attachments. My God, there are a lot of things that are tying us down to samsara. Good heavens, when are we going to free ourselves from all these things? There's suffering, there's karma, there's attachment, there's... What else did you say? Yourself. There's chains all over the place. And sometimes that can be a bit overwhelming if you really start to think about it. Good heavens, there's so much stuff that's tying me down to samsara. I thought getting a divorce was difficult. That only needed one signature on a bit of paper. But now you're talking about unshackling myself from samsara, and there's so many things tying me down. When am I ever going to be able to do this? Maybe a question that sometimes lingers in your minds. You see, as we walk down the path of liberation, vimuktiya, this should be something that we can feel and sense and experience every day, not in 10 years' time, not in 5 years' time, not next week, not tomorrow, but now. Now, at this moment in time, you should be able to experience what Nibbana is. If you don't experience what Nibbana is now, then you probably don't know what Nibbana is in the first place. So if you don't know what Nibbana is in the first place, well, how can you be traveling down that path? You're just walking into the wilderness. That's dangerous, because you could get lost. There may be no one who will be able to help you there. So how do we experience Nibbana now? Let me put it to you this way. I'll give you 10 seconds. On the count of 1, I want you to think about what is it that you experience right now. And some of you may begin to think about, well, I can see things, I can hear things, I can smell, I can feel things. That's okay, that's also experiences. But I want you to think about one who has attained the penultimate, or rather the ultimate goal of samsara, or ultimate goal of practicing this path, who is an arahatan vahanse. If you were an arahant, and I want you to imagine, I know that's difficult, it's not easy, but through the Dhamma, you will have begun to see who an arahatan vahanse is. How do you see the Buddha? Is that the Buddha? No, you see the Buddha through the Dhamma. So if you can see the Buddha through the Dhamma, then clearly you should be able to see who an arahatan vahanse is through the Dhamma. So I want you to take 10 seconds. And in that 10 seconds, I want you to think about, if I were an arahatan vahanse right now, what would I experience? And then think about, well, I'm not, clearly. Well, I'm not, I don't know about you, but I'm not. And then think, what do I experience right now that as an arahatan vahanse, as an arahant, I wouldn't experience? I know, some feel, you might be thinking, what? What? That's okay. This is an exercise, and I want you to try it out, okay? 10 seconds, 3, 2, 1, go. Time's up. What did you experience? Is it difficult to say? Are you lost? Let me help you out. In those 10 seconds, did you feel like, I wonder what he's asking me to do. I wonder what he might say after the 10 seconds is up. What's the right answer? What's the wrong answer? If he asks me to volunteer an answer, am I going to look like an idiot? Perhaps I've misunderstood the question. Should I be able to know, do I really know who an Arahatun Mahansa is? All these doubts, I'm sure for some of you, they might have started seeping into your mind. For others, you might have thought, yes, you were right, I can see things, I can hear things, I can hear the fan, the whirring of the fan, I can see the lights, I can smell the incense sticks, I can feel the chair that I'm sat on right now. But an Arahatun Mahansa can feel the same. So, what is he on to then? See, if we were to really distill it down to what's the one difference between an Arahatun Mahansa and those who are not an Arahant, is this vexation. That suffering of vexation. Believe me. And I said to you a moment ago, some of you may have been thinking, what might he say after this 10 seconds is up? Will I be giving up a stupid answer? Am I going to look like an idiot? Aren't they all feelings of vexation? You're nervous now, you're anxious now, because you have this expectation that you've built up already. I didn't say I was going to ask you. But you're all churning away on the inside thinking, what might he ask me? What might I be able to say? What if I can't come up with an answer? Then what happens? So that was one group of people. Then there were the others thinking, yes, I can see sights, I can hear smells, all that, but an Arahatun Mahansa can feel the same. But what's the difference? The expectation of sight itself is vexation. The fact that when your eyes are open, you expect to see. The fact that when your ears are wide open, you expect to hear. Don't you? What if you turn on the TV and you pick up your remote control and you can hear no noise coming from the television, but you can see pictures, okay? Let's imagine that. You pick up your remote control, and if you can't hear any noise, the first thing you're going to imagine is what? The volume's turned down, or it's muted, right? So what you do next is you keep switching the volume up key. You keep hitting on it, you can see the slider going up in green on your television screen, but still you can't hear anything. It's pin drop silence. Aren't you going to get worried? Isn't that going to start making you feel uneasy? And then imagine, just to play a prank on you, someone at home, let's say your brother or a sibling or a parent or someone comes into your living room and they look at you and you look at them and they start just doing. How are you going to feel? You're going to start sweating. You're going to start feeling really agitated and nervous, frustrated. Why? I can't hear. Have I gone deaf? Because what is your expectation? My ears are wide open. The TV's been turned up. There's a guy over there who's moving his lips, and surely he or she should be saying something, and alas, I can't hear a word he's saying. Wouldn't that send a shiver down your spines? So isn't there the expectation that when your eyes are open, I have to be able to see? I have to be able to smell. I have to be able to taste. Through my 5 senses, I have to be able to take these inputs. Why? I deserve them. Don't you feel so? I deserve sights. I deserve sounds. Everyone's got rights. I have a right to see. I have a right to hear. I have a right to smell. These are the most basic, most fundamental rights. Forget voting. I have a right to see. Every being in all the 31 realms of existence feels that they have a right to see, to hear, to smell, to taste, depending on where, if they're in the Kama worlds or the Rupa worlds and Arupa worlds and respectively. They feel that I have a right, I deserve to be able to do this. Isn't that a feeling of vexation? that feeling of suffering, that feeling of anxiety and frustration. You see, do we not experience that every single waking moment? Every moment. If I went quiet for a few seconds, and you've all got your eyes, which is what we did just a moment ago. You've all got your eyes open, your ears open, all your senses are working. You're expecting inputs to be coming from your ears, and your mind is now waiting for stimuli. Because your mind wants to keep going through this process of producing abhisankara, giving rise to the chittas that bring you these experiences, how you experience the world around you. When we speak of freedom, ladies and gentlemen, this is the freedom that we seek. The freedom whereby, although you have eyes, you have no expectation to see. Then it doesn't matter whether there are sights in front of you or not. It doesn't matter then when you open your eyes and you can't see a thing in front of you. Imagine that. Someone wakes you up, Buddha, wake up. And you know you've clearly opened your eyes, but it's pitch black dark. And you say, Amma, can you switch on the light, please? What do you mean switch on the light? It's broad daylight. What? Your eyes are wide open, and you can't see a thing. How's that going to make you feel? See, right now when you have your eyes open, do you not expect every single moment, with every passing second, for you to be able to see? Do you not expect that? So if at the count of 3, 2, 1, everything just went black, and you weren't able to see anything, how would that make you feel? That would make you feel really uneasy, would it not? Why is that? Because every moment you're expecting to see. You're expecting to see every moment. You're expecting to be able to hear every moment. You take some food, put it on your mouth, and you can't taste anything. How does that feel? When you have a cold, sometimes you can't taste your food, right? That's when you go and ask your mother to make something spicy. I can't taste this stuff. Can you make something spicy for me? Because the food's coming in contact with your tongue, but you can't taste it. Was that a positive feeling, or did you really not enjoy that feeling? When you're expecting taste, but you can't receive it. Did you enjoy that? No, I certainly didn't. So you see, every moment we are in a state of vexation. Every moment. Isn't that a problem? Isn't that a really serious problem? And you thought world wars was a problem? You know, world hunger was a problem? Famines, problems, droughts, problems, tsunamis, problems. They come once in a while. What about this problem that you're having to live with? Every moment, imagine that, ladies and gentlemen. With every moment, we are suffering. Every moment. In the time it takes me to flick my fingers, 100,000 approximately chittas arise and pass away. Each of these chittas are not the result of vipaka. They are karmas, just like you said, madam. They are karmas. Why? Because we give birth to them. We give rise to those chittas. Having been based in avidya, in ignorance, taking on this perspective that continued existence in samsara. What is samsara? Next birth, the birth after that, and the birth after that? Or this process of chittas arising and passing away. This is the simplest, tiniest unit of samsara. So this is our journey in samsara. So the moment you came into this room, the moment you're going to be leaving this room, you will have spent an X amount of units in samsara. Will you not have? An X number of units. And what is that X equals? The number of chittas. The number of chittas that you would have spent while you were in this room. Imagine that though, with the knowledge now that with every one of those chittas, you're suffering. Because there's that vexation within us. The wanting to see, the expectation of seeing sights and sounds and smells and tastes, always expecting that. That is a real problem. See, the thing is, we've been experiencing this for so long, now we've kind of become numb to it. We've become numb to it. It's like the dog that lives by the airport or in a factory where they've got metal work going on. Bang, bang, bang all day. Can't hear it. You go deaf to it. But does that mean that the sound's gone away? Has the noise gone away? No, it's still there. But the problem is we're not able to experience that. Well, we experience it, but we're not able to see that through our mind's eye, through wisdom. This is why the advent of a Supreme Buddha is essential, such that we can redeem ourselves from this suffering. Because otherwise, we're constantly in this state of vexation. No matter where you go in this universe, travel to Mars, what are you traveling there with? Your mind. Travel to Jupiter then? What are you going to travel there with? Okay, what about the next galaxy? Where are you going to go there with? What are you going to go there with? Your mind. A mind which is still what? Expecting. Expectation is the root of all suffering. Where there is no expectation, ladies and gentlemen, there is no suffering there, full stop. And this expectation is nothing but attachment. It's the attachment that leads to this expectation, tanha. So we really need to find a way to put ourselves out of this suffering that is with us constantly. It's a constant suffering. It's like if someone's by your side and continues to prick you with a needle. Imagine that. Every second, prick, prick, prick. With every second. We must be able to understand that this is what's really happening. Now, thanks to the Buddha and his teaching, we are able to understand now that it's because of attachment that we go through this suffering. No attachment, no expectation. So, the reason I started this sermon by saying, we have to be extremely careful and we have to have laser sharp accuracy in terms of where it is where we are heading. You have to be able to know, you have to be able to experience Nibbana now. So how do we experience Nibbana now knowing this? Did you not a moment ago agree with me that with every moment you have this expectation to see? Now, imagine this moment in time you have no expectation to see. No expectation to hear. You have eyes, you can see, but I don't expect to see. You go blind all of a sudden. Okay. You go deaf all of a sudden. Okay. You can't smell anything all of a sudden. Okay. You see an arrow approaching you from afar, and in the next 5 seconds it's going to hit you. Okay. How's that for freedom? Not the tiniest bit of anger, not the tiniest bit of resentment, not the tiniest bit of frustration or pain that comes into your mind when you know this is going to be coming. And in all sense of the word, do we not really know that this is coming? Isn't the day that we're all going to be blind coming? It's coming, right? The day that we're all going to be deaf, that's coming. The day that the arrow of death is going to come and pierce our hearts, isn't that coming? Let me ask you, you don't have to answer if you don't want to share. How many of you or people that you know may have survived a heart attack by now? The moment that you had the heart attack, how did you feel? When you collapsed on the floor, when you were feeling that pain, that excruciating pain on your arm, in your heart, how did you feel? When you felt that this is it, it's time to go. Oh no. How did you feel at that point, at that moment in time? I'm sure either one of you or someone you know will have experienced that. How did you feel? By the grace of the good deeds that you've done, you were saved on that occasion. It was the punya vipaka that came to save you on that occasion. But if you've experienced that once, you do know that it's coming to you again, right? It's not a once in a lifetime. It's coming to you again, and the next time might be the last time. Are we prepared for that? The day is going to come when you're not going to be able to see. And you're still going to be awake. You're going to be alive, but you can't see. How are you going to feel when that day comes? Because when you know that with every moment that passes by, you're expecting to see. With every moment then after you've gone blind, your expectations are being what? Destroyed. With every moment. What you think after you've gone blind, you have no expectation to see? Of course not. How do you know? Well, sit down, when you try meditation sometimes, sit down with your eyes closed. And someone says, right, keep your eyes closed for the next 3 hours. How many of you can manage to do that? 3 hours. Not a blink. You can't open your eyes, not even just to check if anyone's around. You'll hear noises, but you're not allowed to open your eyes. How would you feel? Just test this out. Just because I'm saying it. At home, take 15 minutes if you've not meditated before. Take 15 minutes, sit down, set your alarm clock to 15 minutes. Right? So 15 minutes is up. Because otherwise you're going to be vexed there as well. Is the 15 minutes up yet? Can I open my eyes already? So set your alarm clock to 15 minutes. Close your eyes and then just wait. Don't open your eyes. See how long you can wait. See if you can last 15 minutes. If after 5 minutes you're feeling, but I'm thirsty. I need a glass of water. Otherwise I'm going to die. But I need to go to the toilet. This is not fair. I need to go to the toilet. All these excuses are going to start coming to you. Why? This is the expectation to see. So imagine then if you go blind. This is a simulation. Close your eyes, imagine you're blind and see how long you can last. Now if you know that you're going to be blind one day, how are you going to feel then? Are you prepared for that? Are you ready for that? See, this is why, ladies and gentlemen, we're not talking about a Nibbana in the next birth. Or the birth, previous birth. Forget all of that. Because that's not the point of our discussion. I've spent enough time, I've wasted enough time speaking to people and trying to help them understand next birth and previous birth. I don't talk to people about that anymore. You know why? Because some people come and ask me, they say, I'm a man of science, they say. I'm a man of science, I don't believe in all this nonsense next birth stuff. Prove it to me. So I say, sir, the Buddha's teaching is a science. And I ask him, as a man of science, you should be able to tell me, what is the scientific method, sir? I ask him. And he says, oh, well, as you asked me, and I'm a very knowledgeable person in the sciences, I shall tell you that the method of science is to test, it's to analyze, and then it's to come to a conclusion. You begin all this with a hypothesis. So in a very grand way, they say this all out to me. Oh, excellent, sir. Thank you very much. Now, I tell you, the Buddha's doctrine is a science. Next birth is a science. The presence of a next birth is in accordance with a science. So how are you going to now test if it's true or not? First, you test it. Then you analyze the results. Then you come to the conclusion. Right, go on then, test it. The Buddha's doctrine is a science. So if you want to argue a science, well then the only way that you can agree with the science, or either accept or reject the hypothesis, is if you use the scientific method. So to use the science, people might come and say, these jhanas that you talk of, that's rubbish. How can you get into a state of samadhi? that's all rubbish. First jhana, second jhana, third jhana, what's all that? It's all rubbish. So I say, well, it's a science. And to either accept or reject the science, what must you do? Use the scientific method. And what's the scientific method? First you come up with a hypothesis. The hypothesis is the first jhana exists. That's the hypothesis. You don't need to accept it or reject it yet. Then what? You test it. How do you test it? Well, you go through the process. So come and start practicing the Dhamma. You go through the process, then you get the results, then you analyze the results, and then you can come to a conclusion. Just sitting on your backside, sitting on a grand chair, putting on your tie and your shirt and your collar and white collar and your shoes and your boots, and coming up to me and saying, these jhanas don't exist. Well, you're a man of science, but you're not using the scientific method. So that's all I say to people now, really, because I don't have the time to sit down with people and talk to them and explain to them about next birth and birth, because that is not what we are talking about. That's not the premise of our discussions. The premise of our discussions is the right now, the here and the now. The here and the now, ladies and gentlemen, you know and you experience and you understand, we are in a constant state of suffering, are we not? This constant state of vexation. Any moment I could go blind. What happens then? All the things that I have expectations of, my children, my house, that is at a grand level. But then at a more subtle level, sight, sound, smell, taste, and so on and so forth. All these things are anicca. What does anicca mean again? The result of causes. It's cause and effect. See, the reason that the Buddha says, Yadaniccan tan dukkhan yan dukkhan tadanatta, where he says anicca has a connection to dukkha, is really not because of the nature of anicca in itself. Let me put it to you this way. You know by now that all things are conditioned, right? It's a conditional world, and all things are unconditionally conditioned. All things are unconditionally conditioned, because all things are conditioned. Except for Nibbana, everything else is conditioned. And the nature of all conditioned things is that because it's conditioned, there are conditions that help it maintain a certain state. So you look at boiling water. Why is the water boiling? Was it magic? No, why is water boiling? You look at a pot of boiling water on the cooker, in a pan, and you go, that water is boiling. Why is it boiling? Because there are conditions. The conditions are right for that effect to come above, to manifest itself. So the water is pure H2O, and you have temperature, and it's been heated up to 100 degrees minimum, and therefore it's boiling. So you have the right conditions, therefore you get to see the result. What if any one of the conditions change? You change the composition of the water. You add another chemical to it. So when we used to live in the UK, when it's in the winter, to prevent black ice, they put salt on the roads. And by doing that, they bring down the is it the melting point? The freezing point, yes. They bring down the freezing point of the water. So what they're doing there is really changing one of the conditions. Because leave water as it is, give it 0 degrees Celsius, and then it's going to turn into ice. But change one of the conditions, and then you don't need to worry about all of the other conditions. You just need to change one. So, if all the things that we are attached to right now are conditioned, and it's not just one condition that keep it in that state, but a multitude of conditions, isn't that a really dangerous thing? We should be really careful. Why? Because there's so many conditions of which only a few we can actually perceive ourselves. We can only perceive very few conditions ourselves, because the conditions that we can perceive are those that we can see through our 5 senses. The rest we don't know because we can't perceive them. And so even an Arahatun Mahanse, the world is anicca because it's not to his liking. The sun rises and sets. When you become an Arahant, that does not stop. It rises and sets. Life is also conditioned. The same goes for an Arahatun Mahanse. So the problem then is not the arising and passing away. It's not the Udavima Vaivima. That's not the problem. Because you can't stop that. That's the nature of all conditioned things. We signed up for that. We signed up to live in a world that was conditioned. So we can't change that. It's the nature of the world. It's the way of the world. So it's not the arising and passing away that causes us suffering. What did the Buddha say was the cause for suffering? Arising and passing away? No. What did he say was the cause for suffering? Attachment. Attachment causes suffering. What if you wanted to be happy by being attached? You still wanted ultimate happiness, but you still wanted to be attached. What kind of thing would you have to find to attach yourself to? Exactly. Why? Because that's the only thing that is unconditioned. So that's okay. Attach yourself to unconditioned things all you like. That's perfectly fine. Heaps of attachment to what? Unconditioned things. No problem. To your heart's content, go and attach yourself. To what? Unconditioned things. That's okay. But are there things like that? No, that's the problem. That's the problem. So there are two ways to happiness. One is go and change the world so that all conditional things, you change them so that they are unconditioned. Or those conditions remain static, fixed, and don't change from that point forward. Keep it in that state. Or the second way to find happiness is remove the attachment that you have to that. The Buddha only speaks of one way. Why? Because the other way is not worth talking about. Because is it possible? No, it's entirely impossible. We live in a world, we live in a universe that is entirely conditional. The danger is attaching ourselves to conditioned things. Not that the world is conditioned, that is not the problem. Attachment is the problem. So once we begin to understand that, then we realize that, hey, the problem's not on the outside world, the problem's with me. Why? The changing world, is that with me or is that in the outside world? That's the outside world. But attachment? No, that's with me. But what do people try to fix most of the time? The outside world. When things start to change against their favor, what do they try to do? Hey, I don't like that. Go back to how you were. I don't like the way you walk, or the way you talk, or the way you sit, or the way you sleep. I don't like the way you breathe. Sit up straight, talk nicely, and breathe softly. People try to change the outside world. How many conditioned things are there in the universe? Okay, let's start counting. 1, 2. How many? Infinite. There are an infinite number of conditioned things in the outside world. So to find happiness, what we are trying to do is to find an unconditioned world, or what we are about to do is to change conditioned things into unconditioned things, or change them into our favor. In our favor, then we have an infinite problems to fix. Anyone want to sign up for that? There are people who do sign up for that. Like whom? Like I did. For a very long time in my life, I signed up to that. Like a damn fool, I did. I signed up to that. Because I thought the more money I had, the world was in my control, so I can change this conditioned world to my liking. Let me make sure that all the conditions are in my favor, and then jobs are good. That's what I thought. Little did I realize that's not the solution to the problem. Because everything that arises passes away. And all conditioned things are conditioned because they have causes that give it that state. As we know now, Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana, these are the building blocks of all things that are conditioned. And behind these building blocks, you have Avidya, Tanha, Kamma, Ahara, Nibbati Lakan. So when those 5 causes change, the Rupas change. When those 5 causes change, Vedana changes. When the 5 causes change, Sanya changes, Sankara changes, Vijnana changes. Now we are living on a world that's constantly changing. Not to my liking. If it were to my liking, then great. I've got no problem with that. But my liking is never part of the equation. No one ever came to me and asked me, would you like to grow old? Before my biological clock started ticking. No one came and asked me that. Why? So unfair, isn't it? Anyone came and asked you before your first hair turned grey? How dare they? They should have asked us, shouldn't they? Anyone came and asked you before you broke a leg? No. How dare they? They should have come and asked me. What comes to us are the vipakas of our karmas, as we discussed last week. We can't change the vipakas that come to us. These are the results of the deeds that we've done in the past. The only thing we can do is try and not set the samanantara, which is the environment that is conducive to those results or those karmas taking effect. Yesterday, after the sermon that we had, a gentleman came and spoke to me, and he said he gave me an experience that he had recently, and he said, how do I face a situation like this? So he said, the other day I went to the supermarket. So this is this gentleman speaking to me. He said, the other day I went to the supermarket, and I was at a particular till, and all of a sudden the clerk at the till said, sorry sir, this till is now closed. Would you mind please moving across to the other till? So he put all the stuff that was laid out on the counter back into his basket, picked it up, and he walked around to the till that was just adjacent to that. Now, as he's waiting for this clerk to start serving him, apparently in the machine that he was stood by right now, something went wrong. So now this has become, this is not operational any longer. And then immediately, the till that he left, or the queue that he left, became operational again. So now the lady who was at the first counter takes off the not in service board out, and then she starts serving the other people that are now walking up to the aisle. So one gentleman goes through, another lady goes through, while this man is standing like a donut in front of this clerk, waiting to be served. So these are his words. So he's saying, at that moment in time, I couldn't remember any of the metta or anything that you talk about. He was thinking, to hell with metta right now. I'm not feeling any metta or karuna or mudita or upeksha right now. I want to sort her out. Is how I was feeling at that time. But then later on he realized, you know what, I shouldn't have felt that way. That was wrong of me. And then so he comes back and asks me, Swaminatha, how do I deal with such a situation? And then I gave him an example. I said, I'll come back to your situation, but think about this for a moment. I said, imagine, sir, that you're driving up on the street, you're driving up on the road, and you're in a rush, so you need to get somewhere. And as you're driving up, there's a railway. So the railway, obviously there are railway gates, at least in most of them. And you hear the alarm bell ringing, so you know that it's the train's approaching rather, and the gates are going to shut in a moment. Okay? So in front of you is another car, and you have about 30 seconds within which, if you drive at a reasonably fast pace, you can get through. But any moment of delay, and then you're going to be held back, and you're going to have to wait until the train passes. Okay? So imagine that situation, And imagine there's a car in front of you, and then you're waiting for this car to get through so you can as well. Now, at that point in time, this car in front of you breaks down. Now you're late for an appointment. And you know that you've only got 15 seconds to get through, and the alarm's ringing, and you can see that the barrier is shutting gradually. Now how are you going to feel at that point in time? He said, that would make me really angry. I said, just like you felt angry there at the supermarket, right? Yes. Swami answered, that would make me feel, I understand that it's wrong to feel angry, but I wouldn't be able to help the fact that I'm feeling angry because I have an appointment to get to, and this idiot in front of me, he should have serviced his car. That's why he's broken down right now. So I'm cursing at him. So I said, right, imagine then, this guy didn't break down. This guy didn't break down, and he actually moved along, and for some reason there were perhaps some obstacle that was on the rail tracks. Let's say there was some kind of a nail or something like that, or something that would entangle the tires of the car, and the car came to a halt because the car's not able to move any further. Now the train's approaching, but this car is stuck and it can't move. This is the car in front of you. There was something on the rail tracks onto which the car's tires have now got caught, and now the car can't move. And you are sat there waiting to see what's going to happen. The train approaches and goes ramaging this car, and the car is a complete destruction. It's a complete havoc. The man dies, the car's destroyed, everything's gone havoc. It's a complete disaster. Now I asked him, how would you feel then about the fact that he broke down in front of the barriers? Because if he'd gotten through, guess who was going to be next in line? If he'd gotten through the railroads, who was next in line? I'm next in line. Because what if, whatever that obstacle was on the railroad was just a millimeter off and you would escape it. But his car drove just past it while yours went over it. Now you're stuck there. Now what happens? The train's approaching, and whose car is the train going to go over? My car. How would you be feeling then? Or you wouldn't be alive to be feeling anything. If something like that were to happen, I'd be feeling very happy that I was saved on that occasion. Now I said, well, why don't you think of that? Why don't you think like that when you're at the supermarket? Why didn't you think for a moment, the fact that I was delayed at the supermarket was because my karma was such that if I had left 5 minutes ago, if the clerk had served me 5 minutes ago, and then I driven out of the car park reversed, there was a container that was driving past. The driver fell asleep or didn't see me and drove over me. Car destroyed. Didn't she just save your life? Why are you only so keen to see the other side? Why do you not stop for a moment to think, hey, this could really be in my favor? Perhaps my life was saved. Why don't we think like that? And he said, you know what, Swami Nasa, you're so right. I should have thought about it like that. And he says, come to think of it, lots of things like that happen at home. Where I come home and there's dirty dishes. And then I start shouting at the wife and the children. And then what do? I go and start washing the dishes. And then all of a sudden I hear a noise. And then I walk out and I see that the next door neighbor, he's been bitten by a snake. That snake was in my garden 2 minutes ago. Had it not been for the dirty dishes, I would have gone out into the garden. Didn't those dirty dishes save your life? Why is it always glass half full, half empty, ladies and gentlemen? Do we not ourselves allow this aversion to come into our minds? Are we like magnets for aversion? anger and hatred and aversion, we're like magnets. Given the opportunity, you're just looking, how can I get really mad at this? Give me a situation so I can go really mad and bonkers. Why are we like that? The reason for that is because of our inherent nature. Like attracts like. It's in our inherent nature to attract, to be desirous, to be aversive, to be delusional. So when raga, dvesha, moha are the gati, these qualities, these inherent qualities that we have within us, what we attract in the situations that we see, in the situations that we witness, are situations to conflict with, are things to go and attach ourselves to, are things to go and start getting into a state of vexation. Is the problem with the outside world? No. The problem is always with us. Because we fail to see the good in the outside things. Remember, we've been speaking about seeing the good in others? Well, what about inanimate things? Dirty dishes. Can you not see now the good in dirty dishes? If you really see that, can you now go home and see dirty dishes in your sink and start shouting at your other half? Why did you leave the dirty dishes like that? You should have washed them. Why don't you see the good in that? If you see that your child hasn't done their homework, yeah, fair enough, you got to advise them, make sure you do your homework on time, otherwise you're going to get in trouble. But pretending to be angry and putting up an appearance is one, but firing up on the inside is another. If you're firing up on the inside, then you're suffering. And that suffering is not because of the outside person. That suffering is because of what? The inside person. This is the attachment that we have. That's what we are trying to fix. So when we speak of freedom, ladies and gentlemen, we are speaking of the freedom that we have to be able to experience here and now. Right now. When those moments arise, when we begin to experience the vexation. Example, you hear a noise and immediately feel, I need to turn my head and look at it. Vexation. I'm suffering. I'm expecting to see. I'm expecting to hear. Why? See, the here and now. Then immediately what do? Dhammanupassana. You contemplate on the Dhamma that you've learned so far, you've understood so far. What do I have to gain by turning my head and looking at it? I've turned my head many millions of times already in my life. What did it do to me? What good has it done to me? Not much. So why do I have to turn my head again and have a look? Okay, if it's a robber and you suspect it's a robber, then fair enough, you have to go and attend to it. But, as you're driving, I think I explained this to you, or perhaps it was a singular sermon. You're driving in your car. Did I ask you to do this last week as an experiment? You're in your car, you're not the driver, you're sat in the rear seat. Here's a challenge. Throughout the journey, look at nothing other than the seat in front of you. Challenge. You're not the driver. So why do you need to look left and right and outside the windows? Why do you need to look? You're not the navigator. You're not giving direction. You're just a passenger. So why can't you just look at the seat in front of you? Because that's what's in front of you right now. Why do you have to turn your head? How is that helping your journey? Is that passing or failing the happiness test? Oh, you know the answer. It's failing the happiness test. Is it putting out my hunger? No. Is it giving me medicine for my ailments? No. Is it giving me shelter? No. Is it putting clothes on my body? No. Is it redeeming me from my suffering? No. So why am I looking then? That is you experiencing Nibbana here and now. This moment in time. Because with every reflection that you have like that, every moment you analyze your thoughts like that, you see, this is why you have to be mindful all the time. Sati Sambojjhanga. I'll speak to you about the 7 factors of enlightenment in future sermons, and perhaps, Sati Sambojjhanga, I'll start to talk to you about today. Sati Sambojjhanga, Sambojjhanga are the factors of enlightenment. Sambodhi Anga. Sambodhi is enlightenment. Nibbana. Redemption from suffering. Putting out the fires of Raga, Dvesha, Moha. All that is one and the same. Freedom from vexation. Right? All of this is the same thing. So if Nibbana is something we experience here and now, then Satya, this mindfulness, has to be something that we have here and now. Being mindful all the time about the thoughts that arise in your mind. It's not just a case of knowing what you're doing at that point in time. It's not just a case of knowing that you're walking, knowing that you're eating, knowing that you're sleeping. It's not a case of that. It's a case of why, what are we being mindful for? Remember I told you about the cat that's aiming for the rat. Isn't the cat mindful? Taking target. Have you seen an animal that's more mindful than a cat taking target at a rat? It'll be thunder and lightning on the outside. Not my problem. I'm the predator. There's my prey. I'm just waiting for the right moment. That's mindfulness. But that mindfulness is not going to get it to Nibbana. So there's various types of mindfulness. The mindfulness, the Sati Sambojjhanga, it's not Sati. It's Sati Sambojjhanga. What qualifies the Sati to become a Sati Sambojjhanga? What qualifies mindfulness in such a way that it becomes a factor of enlightenment? When we know what enlightenment is in the first place. Recently, I think it was just 2 or 3 days ago, one of our novice monks, he came and asked me, I share these stories with you, because one, I want you to know that we're all human just like you. Okay? I'm not an alien, and I'm not an Arahatun Mahanse, for starters. Apparently people say that I am one. That's the first I heard of it. Apparently, this is the talk in town that apparently I have claimed to be an Arahatun Mahanse, so let me claim right now I am not. Okay? Let all be known. Okay? Right, anyway. So coming back to the point. We're only human just like you. And when I see another human being, all I see is Raga, Dvesha, Moha walking on 2 legs. So what am I? Raga, Dvesha, Moha walking on 2 legs. That's all I am, nothing else. A desire, aversion and delusion on 2 legs. So, that's one point. The second point is, some of you may feel, hey, if only I were able to ordain myself, I'd be done and dusted with this in no time. I want you to see beyond that. I want to help you understand that that is not the case. Donning a robe, shaving your head is not the answer to the problem, because that is not what Nibbana is. Nibbana is Ragakyo, Dveshakyo, Mohakyo, not donning a robe, not shaving your head. That's not what Nibbana is. So the reason I share these stories is for you to understand that you can attain Nibbana while you go about your day-to-day chores, while you're in your livelihoods, your household, and you do you get on with your day-to-day chores and your household lives. It's not something that you have to leave your household life and come here to a monastery or a temple and start doing. Yes, this will help you do it quicker and faster. But until the time arises, you can continue to do it at your homes. Okay? So, this novice monk, he comes and asks me, he says, Swaminwanta, when I come downstairs into the Dhanashala, which is where we serve alms, and sometimes we have, obviously not sometimes, all the time, visitors who bring us food. Among them, I sometimes see pretty beautiful faces. So he says, I used to have a girlfriend when I was a layperson, and sometimes some faces that I see reminds me of them, and sometimes I feel this fire of desire arise in me. I feel shameful when it happens. and I try to look away, and I try to not think about it. But it's difficult. And, sometimes I think to myself, it's just one glimpse is not going to do anything, so it's just one glance, that's all. Not going to look again. Or might as well just another one. So what? Or, 1, 2, 3 is a hat trick, so might as well. Remember that old story that we used to learn growing up? I can't remember the chap's name. He asks, "Siya pol kadannada?" Remember that? And then Siya says what? Epa. Siya ekagediya kaduwane. Ahena ukkum kada. So that's a little fable that we have in Sinhalese. In English, I'll translate it for those of our non-native speakers. There's a chap who goes, and it's not as funny when I say it in Sinhala, but anyway, for their benefit, I'll translate it. There's a young chap who's really keen on plucking coconuts, and he really wants to do this, but it's his grandfather's coconut tree, so he knows that it's wrong to do it. But still he wants to do it, but he knows it's wrong to do. So what he does is he plucks one coconut and then puts it down, and he goes to his grandfather and says, "Grandpa, would you mind if I pluck coconuts from your tree?" And Grandpa says, "No, you're not supposed to do that." "But I plucked one already." "Oh, well, you might as well then." Then he goes and plucks all of them. So that's how the story goes. Anyway, what I want you to see is the connection to that, to what the story I was explaining to you. So, this monk tells me, this is what happens. Why? Because the eye is always expecting. Well, not the eye, but the mind that's connected to the eye. The mind is always expecting. Just because you've done robes doesn't mean you become anagamis. Right? Doesn't mean the fires of raga, dvesha and moha have been put out, have been extinguished. We are still battling with that. I'm still battling with that. If I were to say any different, what am I saying? I'm claiming to be an arahant. No, I'm battling with raga, dvesha, moha every day. So let's be clear about that. I'm helping you and you're helping me at the same time. So he asked me, Swaminatha, what can I do when that happens? And then as I was about to give him, as I was about to speak to him, he says, "Oh, by the way, Swaminatha, that's the raga side of me, I appreciate that. But there's also the dvesha side of me. Sometimes, when I'm, like we have all our food served into the same bowl, as you have offered alms at the temple, you will know, right? Everything goes into the same alms bowl. So we have rice and curry and sweets and kokis and, all kinds of food go into the same plate with milk and not the drinking milk, but the eating curd, right? All that goes in the same bowl. So he says, sometimes when I look at my alms bowl, I feel a sense of disgust. I find it difficult to eat. I feel like this is vomit. I struggle at that time. And I know that these are feelings of aversion. This is dvesha. When I know fully well that after it's gone past my tongue, it's all going to be in the same place. So it makes no difference which order they go in, because after all, it's all going to be in the same place. Right? That's the truth. So really, you should be able to eat whatever together. But he says, I struggle with that sometimes, and then I feel dvesha. I feel this aversion. What do I do? And then as I was about to begin, he said, Swaminatha, there's one more thing. Sometimes when I'm downstairs and I start to deliver a sermon, or sometimes someone comes and worships me, what do I feel? Ego. I feel proud. I feel pride within me. This is mana. What do I do? So, raga, dvesha, moha, all three. I've got all three, he's got all three. I think we've all got all three. I may be wrong. But I certainly got all three. So he says, what do I do? And so I having listened to him speak all this time, I said, Putta, let me share this practical bit of advice, because every time I say something, I like to make it practical so people can actually do something about it, rather than just listen. You can something do, practice it, right? So I said, I gave him a metaphor. I said, imagine you've got in your hand a cloth. This is a white cloth. It's pure white. Okay, no blemishes, no dirt, nothing. It's just a pure white cloth. You're holding this white cloth in one hand. The other end of the cloth is just above a bucket of paint. A bucket of paint. In fact, there are 3 buckets of paint. 3 colors. You're holding this bit of cloth in one hand. The other end is above 3 buckets of paint, and these 3 buckets are full of paint. Okay? Now, what happens is sometimes the hand that's holding this, or this arm that's holding this bit of cloth, starts to drop. And this cloth is such that even the tiniest, even just one thread that comes out of this cloth, if it comes into contact with this paint, just one thread, give it enough time, what's going to happen? The paint's going to start seeping up the cloth, and the entire cloth is going to be the color of the paint. Given enough time. It's just one thread. That's more than enough. You know how you light the oil lamp, and you put the thread, and then you light it, and then how it draws the oil bit by bit. Similarly, if you've got this cloth in your hand, it's pure white, no blemishes, no dirt, nothing, but you're holding it over this bucket of paint. If your arm starts to drop, and it comes into contact with this paint, given enough time, it's gonna soak up all the paint in that bucket. And I said, would you agree with that? He said, yes, Swaminatha, I agree with that. Now I said, relate that example to what you just told me a moment ago. What are these 3 buckets of paint? Raga, Dvesha, Moha. What is this cloth that he's holding on to? The mind. Absolutely. The mind. If the arm becomes weak and you're not mindful, you're not watching what's going on, because if your eyes are turned towards your arm, or at least the cloth, then you can see if your arm becomes weak, or if the cloth is now coming into contact with the paint. But if you're watching, if you're looking away, if you're just looking away, just gazing at the surroundings, not being mindful what's going on, what happens then? Slowly, this cloth is going to come into contact with the paint. And I'm sure you will have experienced this. If someone asks you to hold something, I'll be right back, hold on to it, and says, don't move one bit. What's going to happen? Over time, your arms are going to become weak, and then slowly you're going to start lowering this, because your muscles are going to become weak, and you can't bear the weight. So likewise, if you're going to look away, your arm's going to become weak, and your mind's going to start dipping into the paints of raga, dvesha, and moha. Given enough time, even if it's just one thread, it's going to soak up all the paint in that bucket. So, Putta, while you might think that you're only taking one glimpse, just one furtive glance, hey, that's okay. It's just one glance. What damage can it do? Guess what you're doing? That's one thread in the bucket. Dip it once. The second one for the road, and again. And then for the hat trick, again. What happens now? Unbeknown to this child, who's not looking at the cloth, but looking on the outside. See, this is why mindfulness has to always not be on the outside, ladies and gentlemen. It's not about, hey, tree, I'm walking towards the tree, it's a tree. That's not what mindfulness is. It's being mindfulness of your own mind. And the raga, dvesha, moha that arises in the mind. Because the nature of all our minds is, at the root, it's pure. It's clean. Unblemished. Pure white. just like that cloth. But then it becomes defiled when it comes into contact with raga, dvesha, moha. This is why Nibbana is even possible. What if raga, dvesha, moha were fundamental, intrinsic parts of the mind? Well, where would you go then? You're helpless. The nature of the mind is that it's pure for starters. But then, through raga, dvesha, moha, it defiles the mind, and then what we need to do is stop defiling the mind. That's all we need to do. By changing the gati, by changing the qualities within ourselves. So I said, now you understand the example, but here's the practical bit. I asked him to do this, and you can do the same. I said, before you go down next, walk up to a few Swamin Vahansas that you trust, a few monks that you trust, who could be Anagarikas or whoever, a few people that you trust, and then you agree with them as such. You agree with them that, Swamin Vahansa, if ever I feel raga, I'm going to give you a sign. I'm going to rub my ear, my left ear. This is to say what? I'm feeling desire now. Let's say a pretty girl's walked in. Okay? She's a beautiful girl, and now he's having thoughts of karma. These are sensual thoughts that are coming back. The fire of desire has been lit now, and like the ambers that were under they have been fueled up again. They've been ignited again, and now the flames are starting to rise. Okay, so he feels this now. When it starts, the first moment it starts, ladies and gentlemen, is easy to spot and stop. If it's just a tiny bit of fire, it is easy to put out. But when it becomes a large flame, when it becomes a huge fire, then it's very difficult to put out. Because now you're overwhelmed. Now you've succumbed to the desire. Now it's too late. So I said, the moment you feel that tiny tinge of desire, give the sign. Look at the Swamin Vahansa that you have agreed this with, and quickly give him the sign. Like that. See, what have you done by doing that? Mindful, yes. Well, you have to be mindful to know that has happened in the first place. But what else? What did the Buddha say the entirety of my ministry is dependent on? Exactly. Kalyana Mitra Sevane. Satpurusha Sevane. Although this Satpurusha is perhaps a few meters, a few yards away, what is he doing now? I have told him, I am in danger. I need help. SOS. I need help. You see, when you are, there's this saying, don't wash dirty linen in public. There's a saying like that, isn't there? Don't wash your dirty linen in public. That's the way the world works. If you want to practice the Arya method, go wash your dirty linen in public. Why? Because the moment you tell the world, here are my weaknesses, now what happens? Now you have no protection from them. I think you have their protection, but you have nowhere to hide now. Because for as long as you're hiding these feelings, you're hiding these thoughts that are arising within you, as this Swamin Vahansa is seeing that girl approaching, and he's feeling this desire arise within him. If he's keeping these feelings hidden, how many glances can he take? As many as he likes. Why? No one knows. Now this is sinning in secrecy. In secret you can do whatever you like. Because only you know what you've done in secret. Haven't you all got secrets? Only you know what you've done in secret. But when you put it all out, when you're now putting your dirty linen in the public, now someone else knows that you need help. And it's difficult when it's become a huge flame to do that. Because you felt the ashwad, you felt that pleasure. 1 moment, 2 moments, 3 moments. A few moments after you felt that pleasure, now you've succumbed to the pleasure. Now you just want more of it. But the moment you feel it the first time, the second time, the third time, if at that point you know, alright, I see something's going wrong, I need help, and I need help quickly. Signal. Now, the Swami Nuhans on the other end knows that something is going on. So what is he doing now? I said this is what you need to do. When you come to this agreement with that Swami Nuhansa, you go and ask him to do this on your behalf. I said, Swami Nuhansa, please, when I give you that signal, focus me and do what? Arya Maitri. Focus your Arya Maitri on me, because I need help right now. Focus on me and have these thoughts, Raga bandhaning midetva, Dvesha bandhaning midetva, Moha bandhaning midetva, Mara bandhaning midetva. May you be freed from the shackles of desire. May you be freed from the shackles of aversion. May you be freed from the bonds of delusion. May you be freed from the bonds of Mara. See, now you have a Satpurusha, Sevani, a monk, a brother monk, a fellow monk is now focusing that energy of the Arya Maitreya on one individual. How powerful do you think that is going to be? All that power focused to help this person free himself from the bonds of desire, from that fire that is lighting within him. And not just that. That's not the end of it. Now that he knows, it's going to be a lot more difficult to take a second glance. Why? It's all in public now. Somebody else knows. Now he's looking at you. Now you can't take another look. And also, not just that, there's a third cover. There are 3 lines of defense. Here's the third line. Once you walk back up into the monastery, into the Sanghavasi, the monks' quarters, guess what the Logoswami Nuhansa is going to do? He's going to come up to you. He's going to say, something happened today, didn't it? Let's have a chat. Let's have a chat. You see, if you don't do it when you feel it, that first moment that you've experienced, if you don't do it then, and you think, you know what, I'm going to take a look now, but later on when I go back to the monks' quarters, then I'll go and speak to the Lokaswami Nuhansa. Is that ever going to happen? That's not going to happen. Because delusion has taken over, and delusion will also say, oh, you know what, it only happened once, don't worry, it's not going to happen again. It's not going to happen again. You're okay, it's alright. But what's happened? This cloth has been dipped in the paint. And now it's got paint all over it. Sita pandu gehena kiyala Guru Swami Nuhansa ke desana wala hala dina. Because the cloth has now been dyed in the paint. So what needs to happen now is, this person needs to take this cloth to the water, to the tap, and get it washed. The tap of what? Dhamma. Buddha Dhamma. The tap is the Kalyana Mitra. The water that comes from it is the Buddha Dhamma. So if it's sensuality, sensuousness that you feel, left ear. What about if it's anger you feel? Right ear. You got 2 ears. What if it's pride you feel? Oh, you got a nose as well, haven't you? Indeed. Whatever the case might be, come up with some kind of technique so that, to someone you trust, find someone you trust that you can do this with. Because you'll find yourself in such situations when you go back into society. I mean, even if it's difficult at the monastery, I can't even begin to imagine how much of this you have to endure when you go into the outside world. Again, the problem is not with the outside world. Okay? So I'm not pointing fingers that way. We all have to be pointing fingers this way. Because to an Arahatun Mahansa, it doesn't matter what environment he's in. All the ambers have been put out. No fire is ever going to be lit in that great person ever again. But for us, Because we are extremely flammable, what happens? Just one tiny spark is enough. You know how do you see these tankers that have this sticker on the back, extremely flammable? Oil tankers? Here's something I suggest you do. Get a sticker, put it on your back. Extremely flammable. I think we'll make some Dharmayai Obai t-shirts in future. Extremely flammable. And you have to wear one until you become an arahant. How's that for a show? I mean, really, that's saying I still have raga, dvesha, moha. That's a constant reminder, isn't it? What do people like to do? Go outside and sing praises about them. But when you say extremely flammable on your back, what are you now saying? Have pity on me. I still have raga, dvesha, moha. I'm still suffering, constantly suffering. You'll see me turn my head left, right and center. You'll see me go places, wandering, looking for sights and sounds and smells and tastes, always looking for sensuality, always suffering from vexation, this anticipation, this expectation. Please help. That's another way of saying SOS on your backside. Extremely flammable, aren't we all? Extremely flammable. One tiny spark is all it takes. So I said, try that out. And be mindful to watch your mind and know that it's being dipped in the paint, and you can now see the paint seeping up through the cloth. That's one. And to do it as soon as possible. As soon as possible. Because when the first thought arises, you still have the power of, because you see, we are using this weapon of wisdom. This weapon of wisdom is what we need to kill the Mara of Raga, Dvesha, Moha. We need a weapon. And this is the weapon of wisdom. But our weapons are not sharp enough yet. Our weapons are still not sharp enough yet. They are still blunt. With a blunt weapon, you can pierce through something that is not so strong, not so thick. Something that is very fine, a tiny film that can pierce through. But when it becomes solid, when it becomes rock hard, when it becomes very thick, then it's very difficult to pierce through if it's not sharp enough. So, if your weapon is still something that's quite blunt, pierce it while you can. Because what happens if you leave it? Then that cloth's going to take a lot of washing. And you're not going to know that, you're going to succumb to the pleasure. And when you do that, it's too late. Then one leads to the other. That leads to the other. That leads to the other. And before you know it, you're lost. Remember how I spoke to you in the past about how, technology and the use of computers and the internet and so on and so forth. Young people these days, sit down in front of the computer. You're going online to do something else, but something pops up. And now that's the lure. That's the bait. One glance, that's all it takes. One glance. What would be good is if your kids had an alarm on their tables. An alarm or some kind of bell that they could, a buzzer. The moment that they see that, buzz. So what? Amanos. And then mother comes running. Yes, Puta. How can I help you? Really, as Buddhists, ladies and gentlemen, we really have to change the way that we address these issues. Because I think, and particularly for, this is general advice I'm sharing, not just for yourselves, but also other parents who are listening to this online. Sometimes guilt and shame takes over. And when guilt and shame takes over, it's very difficult to go seek help. Would you agree? When guilt and shame takes over, it's very difficult to go seek help. It's very difficult to go and say, Amma, I need help. Tata, I need help. I was using the computer, I saw this picture, and I felt like clicking on it. And then I clicked on it. And then I was in a world that took me into fantasy land. And then I was lost. I think we need to create a culture whereby children are empowered to go and speak to their parents and say, Amma, the fire of raga has arisen in me. I'm feeling anger. I'm feeling delusion. I'm feeling, because the thing is, I think in our culture it's become normal such that these thoughts, they're shameful. Yes, I agree they're shameful. But we've been shunning them so much that children feel extremely embarrassed to come and open up to their parents. I think that needs to change. I don't know how you feel about that. I think that needs to change. Because who are the Kalyana Mitras that you have at home, apart from your parents? At the monastery, there are 50-odd monks. That young novice monk could have gone and spoken to another 49-odd monks. But at home, ladies and gentlemen, your children only have the two of you. And if you're a single parent, then they've only got the one of you. So I think these conversations need to happen. Parents need to walk up to children and say, Puta, just like you, I also am raga, dvesha, moha walking on two legs. The problems you have, I too have. We are both trying to get to the same goal. We are both trying to get to a point where we no longer suffer through the vexation. Where I'm also trying to achieve this. Having listened to the Dhamma, I understand that I still feel that I need to turn my head and look at sights. Sounds still make me suffer. Sights and sounds and smells and taste, these things still pull at my heartstrings, and I feel the need to turn my head and look. So just like you, we are in the same boat here, Buddha. I think children would be more receptive then. Instead of taking up a cane or picking up a stick and going, how dare you do that? Because what happens then? Next time they're going to do it in secret. Then who's going to come to their help? Then who are they going to call out SOS to? To their best mate in class. What, the best mate in class is an Arahatun Mahanse? The best mate in class is also Raga, Dvesha, Moha walking on two legs. Now you've got two birds of a feather who are going to flock together. Hey, don't tell your parents about that. Come to me. Trust me. I'll help you. Haven't I not told you about young monks who are ordained with us? And some of the things that they used to do in their lay lives. Grade 6. And they've tried out everything you can imagine. Have I not shared stories with you in the past? Why? Parents weren't open. Parents weren't receptive. Never say it's okay to feel raga, dvesha, moha. Always say it's okay to come and speak to me about it. You have a problem. That's not okay. I also have the problem. I'm going to help you. Let's listen to this sermon. Let's sit down 5 minutes and listen to this sermon. Because what's going to happen is when they feel that ashwadam matra, the pleasure, once that pleasure is experienced, ladies and gentlemen, 2 moments, 3 moments, and so on, then you begin to succumb to it. And now there's no hope. They're drowned in the pleasure of sensuality. And the world out there is just looking for these opportunities. Television and internet and Facebook and this, that and the other. Again, the problem's not with the outside world. How can you switch off all the televisions? How can you keep your child from going out? Buddha, never go out again. How can you do that? So, I would propose to parents, I've never been a parent, so I don't know how that might sound, but I would propose to you, think about this, at least consider this. Have that conversation with your children. Have that conversation whereby you go and explain to them, Puta, raga, dvesha, moha. This is what raga feels like. Have you never seen a girl? Or go to your daughter and that guy in class that sometimes I see you looking at? Because parents, come on, you all spot these things, right? Although your children think you don't know, you know it, right? That guy you keep looking at? That is raga. Talk to them about the essenceless nature of it. Talk to them about how this ashvada, this pleasure is always something that arises but then passes away. Because this is not rocket science. A 7-year-old can understand this. Talk to them about how the resting point is always at vexation. The resting point is always at suffering. What is the resting point? Dukkha dukkha. When you're at the resting point of suffering, you open your eyes, you look at the sight, now you feel pleasure, but what happens to that chitta? Passes away. Now where are you back again? Where you started. It's the same on the y-axis. If x is the time axis, it's just another chitta that has arisen and passed away on the time axis. But on the y-axis, it arose, experienced pleasure, and passed away. It's back on the same point. Talk to them about this. They'll understand. At least try. Because there are no moral, it's very seldom that they're going to find moral and noble associations in the outside world. You have to give this to them. I think more so I need to speak about this in English sermons perhaps than in the Sinhala sermons, because there are a lot of listeners globally who don't necessarily have the opportunity sometimes to go to a temple at least, or to associate a monk, or at least to listen to some Dhamma, because I know what life there was like. It's non-stop, earning money, building houses, earning wealth, property, and then just life goes on. And then parents forget children. So, as parents, as influential people in society, I would ask you to, let's try and create a culture whereby it's okay for children to come and speak up to their parents about the problems that they have, that is raga, dvesha, moha. When they feel that desire arises within them, they identify that I have a problem, I need help. Best thing is if you go and speak to them up front. Open up that conversation. Begin that conversation. Puta, you're going to feel this at some point in your life. When you feel it, come and speak to me. I'll be a friend to you. Not, I'm going to pick up a cane and start whacking you. That's not the way to approach it. At least not how I think it should be. Because then they're going to do it in secret. Then you're never going to find out. Then you don't know, they're going to go become a womanizer. They're going to go become a drugged. You're not going to find out. So think about that. I'll share with you another story about, this is an experience I had last week. For those of you who may have been up to the meditation platform where my Guru Swami Nuhanse spends most of his day, there are seats on either side of this meditation platform. So it's a valimalu, okay, where it's sand. And there are seats on either side, and you can sit down, and he's always welcomed us to come and be silent, but sit down and meditate, and it's always open for us to do that. So one fine day I went and sat there and I was doing my meditation. But I like to meditate with my eyes open. Half open at least. Then it helps, like particularly if it's dark, then sometimes, if you keep your eyes closed, you can start falling asleep. So it helps me with that as well. So I keep my eyes half open. Now, I was sat there for about an hour, and then I noticed that Guru Swami Nuhanse, he got out of his meditation seat and then he started walking up and down. So now he's moved on to walking meditation. So I'm still looking at that. I had my eyes focused on one bit of the meditation platform, on the Valimalu. I'm looking at one area of sand, and that's where I've got my eyes fixed. I'm not thinking about sand, by the way. I'm thinking about the Dhamma that I'm contemplating, how my raga, dvesha and moha are constantly making me suffer. That's what I'm thinking about. But my eyes are fixed on this. But because the rupa is not changing, it's not disturbing my state of mind. Because if that constantly kept changing, then it would be difficult for me to concentrate on my thoughts, because every time the rupa changes, it's a new object, right? New mind object. So now it's a new object to think about, right? So it's like, that's why when people go to meditate, they wish, they try to make it a calm and serene and quiet environment. Because when sounds come, what happens? We can't help but hear it. And then we can't help but listen to it. And then we start making sense of it. We can't help but do that. So likewise, when you're looking at something, an object, if it's not changing, then it's easy to think about something. So I'm doing this. Now Guru Swami starts to walk up and down the meditation platform. And now what's happening is, every time he approaches, he walks in front of me, that disrupts my samadhi. So he walks up and he walks back down, and then for that, while he's away, I'm okay. And then he comes back into my frame of vision, and it disrupts my samadhi. So now I'm contemplating, what do I do? Do I shut my eyes? Do I go indoors? Do I turn around so I don't see him? What do I do? And I'm thinking, hang on a second. Why don't I contemplate on what's happening right now? Let me try to see the Dhamma that is in front of me right now. Let me try to make this my master, my Dhamma teacher. So then I began to think about this. I began to think about the fact that this sand that is in front of me, this patch of sand, within my frame of vision, I've been staring at it for now for how long? About an hour, right? For an entire hour, I've been staring at this sand. And that vision, that sight, where there's a sand, there are some bricks on either side, which mark the boundaries of the platform and so on, right? So I've been looking at this for an entire hour, but alas, this sight that I'm looking at, this rupa that I'm looking at, has no mercy on me whatsoever. After I've spent a whole hour looking at this patch of sand, looking at this sight, can it not for one moment be kind to me and nice to me and not change? Because what's happening when Guru Swaminatha walks up and down? The sight keeps changing. Within my frame of vision, the sight that I'm looking at, imagine I took a picture. But every time he walks up and down, he walks past me, the sight keeps changing, and that keeps disrupting my samadhi, right? So I'm thinking here, sat down and thinking, I've been looking at you for a whole hour, and you can't do just one thing for me. That is not change. Because if you didn't change, that wouldn't disrupt my state of samadhi. How could you do that to me? Why can't you be a little bit more kind to me? Why can't you be just a little bit more gentle to me? You are so ruthless, heartless, merciless. Are you with me so far? So, who am I pointing my finger at now? The sight, this rupa that's in front of me, right? The rupa which is sand, and the bricks that mark the boundary of the sand, which I've been staring at for an entire hour, and yet, the moment that Guru Swaminatha starts to walk, now this sight keeps changing. The very sight that I was looking at for an entire hour, no gratitude whatsoever. For an entire hour I was staring at it, and no gratitude, not just a modicum of gratitude. And then I reflected on the fact that is the nature of rupa. The rupas are heartless, merciless, ungrateful. For as long as the causes are there, the state of that rupa will remain in that state. It will have that condition. But as soon as the conditions change, the state is going to change. It doesn't matter how long I've been staring at it. It doesn't matter how much I've attached myself to it, how much I like it, I'm in love with it, how much I endear it. Doesn't care. Not one bit. I mean, if you really think about it, should it not have at least, right? As Guru Swami Nwansa was approaching, no, beyond this point, it's going to be in his frame of vision. He's been staring at me for an entire hour, so I'm not going to allow you to walk into his frame of vision. Should it not have done that? At least that. I'm talking about the sand. Should it not have done that? If it just had a modicum of gratefulness towards me? But nothing. When the causes change, effect changes. As soon as the conditions change, the effect changed. With not just one thought spared on my behalf. So I began to think, aren't all Rupas like that? I may be in love with them. I may be attached to them. I may endear them. I might say my whole life depends on you. But yet, when the time comes where the conditions change, what's going to happen to the effect? It's going to pass away. When the causes change, the effect is going to pass away. Now, isn't that the same for Vedana? Isn't that the same for Sanya and Sankara and Vijnana? Aren't all of them conditioned? What was my liking? What was my desire? Sand, I've been staring at you for an entire hour. At least show me some respect. Please. I'm not asking for much. Just don't change. Give me 5 minutes, I'll complete my meditation and stand up. Give me 5 minutes? No. Do you see Rupas are heartless? Do you see how they have no concern for what you feel, how you think about them? Now, think about this for a moment. A man comes up to you. And you look at him and go, hey, this guy, I think he needs help. Right? He's got disheveled hair. He's in rags. He looks like he's not had a good meal, a fair meal for a few days. So you think, I'm going to help you. So you take him indoors. You sit him down. You ask him to take a wash. You feed him. You give him clothes. You give him shelter. Right? And you make sure that he's in fine fettle. His health returns. You keep him for a few days. And then after about a week, you go out for work and you come back and you find your entire home has been burgled. And the guy's missing. How are you going to feel then? How would you feel if that were to happen to you? He's taken away all of your happiness. Everything that you did for him was not his concern. Ungrateful. Well, you'll use some swear words after that as well, which I'm not going to utter on the right now. You'll swear at him, you'll curse him, and you'll say, I am never, ever going to let you come anywhere near me ever again. Are you not going to say that? For being so ungrateful to you? Now, if you are not going to do that for that man, what about all the Rupas that you've been loving all your life? Did they not take away every modicum of happiness that you experienced? Every time you loved them, you endeared them, you embraced them, you kissed them, you got into bed with them. But what did they do? When the time was right to go, ta-da. Didn't spare one moment to think, how might you feel if I left? Have you not been cheated? Have you not been cheated on? All these Rupas that you fell in love with? Isn't this what has really happened in our lives? Tell me then, if you were to let that man back into your home again, and you give him a second chance, You know what, the other day, yes, you ransacked my home, but I'm going to feed you again. I'm going to shelter you again. I'm going to be nice to you again. If you had a good friend, what would that friend come and say to you? What word might he use to describe you? Exactly, madam. Starts with F and ends with L and has 4 letters. You fool! Why would you do that? Why would you let him into your home again when this is what he did to you last time? He took everything that belonged to you. He destroyed you. He left you with nothing. And you let him into your home again? What were you thinking? Now think about what we are doing on a daily basis. Rupa, Shabda, Gandha, Rasa, Sparsha, sight, sound, smells, taste and tactile sensations. Don't we just embrace them with open arms and let them into our lives? Attach ourselves, on which we produce the Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. Let them into our lives and attach and cling on to them like our life depends on it. But what do they do when it's time to go? Don't they take away your happiness as well? They don't just leave. What do they take? Your happiness. Think about the last time you lost something that you really loved, you really liked. Whether it was a necklace or a earring, whatever. An earring or I don't know, car keys or money, credit card, whatever. Something that you lost. Boyfriend? Something that you lost that you really loved, that you were really attached to. Was there anything there apart from Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana? Was there anything there apart from Rupa, Shabda, Gandha, Rasa, Sparsha? You attached yourself to it. You loved it. You embraced it. You said, my entire life depends on you. And then what did they do? Tata. It's time to go. Farewell. Did they stop one moment to think how that might make you feel? Did they stop one moment to think that it's going to leave you in shatters when I do this to you? No, why? Because all Rupa, Shabda, Gandha, Rasa, Sparsha are heartless. Not a modicum of gratitude do they have towards you. So, if we are still them, wanting to fall in love with them, wanting to endear them, wanting to embrace them, what do you think we ought to be called? You can add an S to it, because there's a lot of us here. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. This is Nibbana here and now. Because we are always prepared to open our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, mouth and our body to accept all these inputs that come from the outside world. Again, the problem is not with the sights or the sounds or the smells or the tastes. The problem is with us falling in love with them. That's the attachment. It's us endearing them. Embracing them. Come here, darling. Oh, where have you been all my life? That is the problem. Because man comes, disheveled hair, in rugs, you don't let him in. You say, I don't trust the look of you. Stay outside. I'll bring you food. You can eat. I'll make you another shelter. You can stay there, but you're not going to come into my house. I don't trust you. I don't like the look of you. Now that he goes, he has eaten the food you've given him. Maybe you've given him a shirt or a trouser or a sarong or something that he's taken with him, but he's not taking anything that you didn't want to give. That's because you didn't take him in. You didn't take him indoors. Now that would be the wise way to handle a stranger. So why are you prepared to get into bed with strangers then? Honestly, why are you prepared to get into bed with strangers? Who are these strangers? Rupa, Shabda, Gandha, Rasa, Sparsha and Dhamma. Oh, we are so prepared. We trust them so much when they can or cannot be trusted. Can or cannot. Why? Because they are conditioned. For as long as the conditions last, you will have the effect. The rupa will be there, the shabda will be there, gandha, rasa, sparsha will be there. But as the moment that at least just one condition changes, that's all it takes. Even if the outside rupa doesn't change, what if you go blind? Even if the outside shabda doesn't change, the sounds don't change, what if you go deaf? Now what happens? You're still left destitute. So then tell me, yes sir? Absolutely. Every single time. Nothing else. Every single time. So when the Buddha said, the cause for all suffering is attachment. God, he was so right. He was spot on, bang on the money. Never has there been any teacher who was so right about everything he uttered. Never. This is the source of all problems. All mental frustrations, all mental agonies, all mental agitations, all mental suffering, vexation, everything is because of attachment. Don't get into bed with people you don't trust. Don't get into bed with strangers, because they don't have a modicum of thought, consideration to you. Don't trust rupa. Don't trust them. They're going to destroy you. Don't trust Vedana. Don't trust Sanya. Don't trust Sankara. Don't trust Vijnana. It's the Rupa, Shabda, Gandha, Rasa, Sparsha, which are the inputs that give rise to Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana within your thoughts, within your consciousness. So we are in love with the Rupa as well as with the Rupa as well as the Rupa that is born within our minds as well. We are in love with the Shabda, the sounds, as well as the Shabda Rupa that are born within us as well. And so on and so forth. So there's the Abhyantara Ayatana and the Bahira Ayatana. Internal, are they called faculties? Ayatana, yeah. Internal faculties and the external faculties. It's the combination which produces this result, which we then go and attach ourselves to. Extremely dangerous. For as long as you're extremely flammable, in other words, you're extremely trustworthy. Isn't that what your sister said? I think that was a good bit of advice for all of us, madam. Wasn't that right? What this lady shared with us last week? You trust too much? Well, don't we all do that? Her sister was talking about other people. What are we talking about? Rupa, Shabda, Gandha, Rasa, Sparsha. So let's not build castles on top of them. Because this is like building castles on the beach. When the waves come, it's going to wash everything away. And when that day comes, we're all going to cry. So I said I'll talk to you about the factors of enlightenment as we go forward in following weeks. But I said I'll touch on the Sati Sambojjhanga. And I have been speaking about that here and there as I started the sermon. But this Sati Sambojjhanga, this mindfulness is something that has to be there 24/7, always, throughout. It's always being mindful of our thoughts. Because it's our thoughts through which we attach, our thoughts through which we get into conflict, our thoughts through which we get into states of vexation. It's the thoughts, not the body. So thoughts that always do that. So when we are mindful of what's going on, it's like being mindful about making sure that that bit of cloth that we are holding on to does not touch the paint. Because one bit of string is enough. Given enough time, all of that paint is going to get soaked up. Remember, just one bit of paint. So one glance is all it takes. If you're feeling a second glance, it's okay, one for the road. very dangerous. Like I said, parents, children, if you can have that connection at home whereby you can have that, where you open up that avenue for conversation. This might be a little bit more tricky. Husbands and wives, why can't you do that? If you are prepared to accept that you are both raga, dvesha, moha walking on two legs, then be prepared to accept that when my husband sees another woman, it's possible that desire might ignite in his heart. Is that not the truth though? Why do we shun ourselves from the truth? Isn't that the truth that nobody likes to speak about? At least if you open up that avenue, if ever you feel that, let me help you because I am on a journey to Nibbana. Because you know what? If you leave me, then all the better for it. Because I am on a journey to Nibbana. And this is another bond that I have to foster, another bond that I have to nurture, another baggage that I have to carry with me. I mean, it's only if you come to that state, okay? So don't be hasty. If your entire life depends, then perhaps don't be too hasty in uttering that. But, this is only for the intelligent ones among you. So be very careful. But I think, because, oftentimes when couples come and speak to me, I say, make sure the two of you provide Satpurusha Sevani to each other. Because that's who you spend most of your lives with. So if at any point in time you feel desire, tell me. I'll help you. That's Kalyana Mitra Sevani. It's being prepared to accept that this is another Raga, Dvesha, Moha walking on two legs. I might feel anger more than you do, but you feel desire more than I do. Well, which one of us is better? They're the same. One's worse off on the Raga side, the other's worse off on the aversion side. So let's help each other out. Because we are both on this journey to Nibbana. Because what if that avenue is not open? Then it happens in secret. Then when the day comes out, you find out it's going to be too little, too late. But of course, as I said, there must be absolute trust for you to do that. And you have to be prepared to listen. You have to be prepared to accept that the person you've gotten married to is Raga, Dvesha, Moha on two legs. Are you prepared to accept that? If you think you've gotten married to a saint, well, saints don't get married. Surprise, surprise. Newsflash. So, we have to be able to accept what the problem is. Otherwise, how can you treat it? If you are not prepared to go to the hospital and say, Doctor, I've got pneumonia, because you're shy. You don't like to be coughing when there are people around you who can see you coughing and splurting your blood and saliva all over the place. What's going to happen to you in a few days, weeks' time? You're going to die. You have to be able to open up. This is why I say, when it comes to the Arya way of practicing this path, be prepared to wash your dirty linen in public. By public, I don't mean go up and shout over the rooftops, hey, I'm a bundle of Raga, Dvesha, Moha, everyone. Let all ye all be known. That's not what I'm saying. Have someone that you trust. And, if you're in a loving relationship, then that has to be someone that you trust. At least I would expect that. So make use of that. Always understand that the person that is over there is just the same as me. I'm also suffering from Raga, Dvesha, Moha. And the person I got married to is also suffering from Raga, Dvesha, Moha. If you're prepared to accept that. Are you not prepared to accept that your husband or your wife may fall ill? Are you not prepared to accept that? Did you not know that before you got married? You did, didn't you? Did you not know that this person was going to die? You did, didn't you? And yet you got married. Well, what's something that you also knew maybe but you didn't like to think about? He's also got Raga, Dvesha, Moha. the fire of desire, aversion and delusion are still within this person. Otherwise he wouldn't have married you. Even if you're a Sotapanna, think about Vishaka. Still, Raga, Dvesha, Moha. I think, if there's a couple who are both Sotapannas at least, I think that is possible at home. Where the moment you feel Raga, honey, SOS. Okay, talk to me. What's the problem? That one over there. I'm feeling the fire. Think about the resting point. Arise, passing away. You're trying to find happiness through attachment. You're trying to find happiness through pleasure. You do realize that after we walked out of the mall, you're still suffering. You're still in a state of vexation. You do realize that. Yes, I do realize that. This may not be easy. I get that. Okay, I accept that. I accept that, madam. This may not be easy. And this is only for couples who are both prepared to walk this path. Madam? Exactly. Both understood and both understand the Dhamma. Otherwise, best maybe not to. Because, we need help. I need help. I always need help. I'll need help until the moment I become an Arahatun Wahanse. I'll need help. Every day I worship Guru Swami Wahanse and say, Swami Wahanse, please give me help. Please help me out. Until the day I become an Arahatun Wahanse, please be by my side. Please be my guardian angel. Please be there for me. Whenever you see me doing wrong, point it out. If ever I speak in ways I shouldn't, if ever I do something I shouldn't, if ever I act in a way I shouldn't, please tell me so I can fix myself. Because how else am I going to become an Arahatun Wahanse? If not by fixing myself. So all of that was... Do you have the projector? Okay. So all of that was practical stuff that you may or may not choose to try out at home. You know how they come with disclaimers, do not try at home. As intelligent, wise people, choose which ones of, this is like a supermarket, okay? At the supermarket, you got all types of foodstuffs and household stuff. You come in, there's a supermarket, aisles full of stuff, you only take the things that you want. Don't spend your money on taking things that you're going to take home and then it's just going to be a waste of time. So, take what you have to, because there are lots of you and you're all in different states of practice, okay, on this path, and I'm trying to cater to a varying audience. So this is why I share some bits of advice broadly and some very specific. So pick and choose what it is that is going to help you. Okay, so I'm conscious that you have to leave in about another half an hour, or at least in an hour, so for that we have to conclude the sermon in about half an hour. But before I do that, I think we've got a video that I want to show you, and this is the video that was produced from the ordination ceremony that we had not last week but the week before. Is that right? Yes, a month ago. I think there were some of you who were able to attend and grace the occasion, so we're grateful for your presence. And I know there are others who were not able to make it in person, but I know there were lots of you who helped make this possible and make this a success in lots of different ways. And the beauty of all that help and support is that there are no names on any of this. There's no doer. There's no one that says, hey, I did this, I did that. Do you see any bit of furniture that has a name on it? None of this I bought. It was all there when I got here. None of these cupboards have names except for the names of the Swami Wahanses, without whose permission you can't take books from the cupboard. They have no names on them. These speakers, these cameras, none of these have names on it. But they have all been donated to the Shasana by people just like you. And This is an act you do not to promote the self. Right? We all understand that now. The self is the crucial problem here. That's the crux of the problem. So you can't destroy the self by going to cultivate and foster and nurture the self. So to be able to do something and say, hey, I did this, just make sure you say my name. What are we doing? Nurturing the self. And by the way, I'm not saying this as advice and suggesting you shouldn't be doing this, because I would be offending you for me to be offering this to you as advice, because I know none of you are like that. What I'm doing is actually praising you for being the people that you are and being of that nature, where what you want is just to do the best you can for the Sambuddha Shasana. None of this is for an individual. It's all for the Buddha's Shasana. So really, it's all for Tathagata and Mahansa. For the perfect one, the unparalleled one, the blessed one, who taught us how to redeem ourselves from all types of suffering, from all kinds of suffering. It is thanks to him that we all have this today. So as you observe this, there's a scene in here which, when was shown to me, I thought was quite profound. I wonder if you can spot that, and so be attentive to what you see. There's one scene which is quite profound, because there's a lot of Dhamma you can take from it. I'll speak to you very briefly before I conclude, but see if you can spot that. Okay? So can you all see this from where you're sat? Perhaps if you want to move to the left side of the room. So what did you think? We were very happy about how the whole event was, how it all came together. And I think it was a great occasion to not just felicitate and pay respects to those great human beings who renunciated their lay lives. Those great human beings who had so much in terms of worldly possessions that they gave all of that up and came into the Shasana to practice the path, the teaching of the Buddha. But also, I think I'm really glad that we were able to organize that to that extent, to show our mark of respect to those parents who were able to make that sacrifice. Because it's one thing for you to give up things that, worldly things, money, property, wealth and so on. But to give something up that was part of you, to give something up that was your blood and bones, that you shed every drop of tear and blood to bring up, to nurture and foster, I think that is one of the greatest ways of giving up that can be seen in all of humankind. So I'm really glad that we were able to organize that and really show that mark of respect to the parents. And as I was saying before, we couldn't have done it without your support. And if when you see this, you feel happiness, you feel pride, you feel joy and bliss, you deserve it. Because those are all offerings to the Lord Buddha. Every thought of joy and happiness and bliss and satisfaction that you feel are all offerings to the Lord Buddha. Because we are all His sons now. Remember I said there would be one scene, I don't know if you were able to spot that, which I thought was quite profound. To me, it was that scene where these newly ordained monks were walking back to the main hall under the umbrellas on one side, and in the same scene you could see dancers walking in the opposite direction. To me, that spoke volumes. There are some who are walking away while there are others who are walking in. The very people who are now donned in robes, donned in saffron, having shaved their heads, given up, renunciated all those worldly possessions that they had, are the very people who once were dancers, who danced every move that they could in this world, who were clad in all the glamour and the glitter, and made every move that they could to make everyone else happy, to be somebody in this world. That was a stark juxtaposition from where I was sat in my point of observation. Perhaps I think maybe you were able to see the same as well, because that spoke volumes to me. It's the very people who were like those people who are now walking away, dancers, who danced in this world, but now having given all that up, and just a robe and an alms bowl to their name, walking back to lay down in front of the Supreme Buddha and to make a solemn promise to Him. From now on, from this point on, we are warriors of your clan. You are our king, we are your warriors. And from this day forward, we will battle, we will fight. We will fight until our last breath. We will fight until every drop of blood in our bodies have been shed. We will endeavor, we will promise to our parents that although they may have cried on our behalf many times in their lives, never again, mother, father, will you have to cry on my behalf. Because I will put a stop to all the births, all the times that suffering has come to me, and therefore put a stop to all the suffering that I have brought you forever in samsara. That was a huge statement to me, and I think that was something that I really took away from that video. So I think in summary, for those of you who were able to be here, and for those of you who weren't here in person but were here in mind and heart and in your blessings, we are extremely grateful for all that support. Even if all you did was think about us at that moment, put your hands together and said sadhu sadhu, even that was an energy, was a strength to us to make that event possible. And as I said, not just to us and the people who made this event possible, but a mark of respect to the parents who made the greatest sacrifice on that day. So thank you. I think we'll conclude the sermon on that note. But before we do so, let us take a moment to do the Arya Maitri, and I think today we do it in Sinhala. Is that correct? Yes? Okay. Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo sansar dahayen midetva sansar rogayen midetva sansar dammen midetva sansar anduren midetva Nibbana parama sukhayen sukita taravetva Nibbana parama sukhayen sukita taravetva Nibbana parama sukhayen sukita taravetva Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo Raga bandhanayen midetva Dvesha bandhanayen midetva Moha bandhanayen midetva Mar bandhanayen midetva Nibbana parama sukhayen sukita taravetva Nibbana parama sukhayen sukita taravetva Nibbana parama sukhayen sukita taravetva Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo Jati ginnen midetva Jara ginnen midetva Vyadhi ginnen midetva Marana ginnen midetva Nibbana parama sukhayen sukita taravetva Nibbana parama sukhayen sukita taravetva Nibbana parama sukhayen sukita taravetva Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo Dukkha ginnen midetva Domanassayen midetva Shoka ginnen midetva Upayasayen midetva Paridevayen midetva Yampit chang labati tampi dukkha දුක්ඛයෙන් මිදෙත්වා සංකිත්තේන පංචෝපාදානස්කන්ධයෙන් මිදෙත්වා නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා කාම ලෝක අනාතයි එයින් මිදෙත්වා රූප ලෝක අනාතයි එයින් මිදෙත්වා අරූප ලෝක අනාතයි එයින් මිදෙත්වා සියලු ලෝක අනාතයි එයින් මිදෙත්වා අතහැරීම නාතයි අතහැරීම වෙත්වා නොයල්ම නාතයි නොයල්ම වෙත්වා මිදීම නාතයි මිදීම වෙත්වා නිවනම නාතයි නිවනම 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 වෙත්වා නත්ති මේ සරණං අඤ්ඤං බුද්ධෝ මේ සරණං වරං නත්ති මේ සරණං අඤ්ඤං ධම්මෝ මේ සරණං වරං නත්ති මේ සරණං අඤ්ඤං සංඝෝ මේ සරණං වරං නත්ති මේ සරණං අඤ්ඤං නිබ්බානං පරමං සුඛං Just one final remark, because I found this quite enlightening and interesting. You know, when I was suggesting to you before that as a couple you could perhaps provide that noble friendship, and if one feels desire looking at somebody else, then perhaps you can share that. Some of the comments I heard from the audience were, well, then you should have good trust and faith in each other. What does that say then about that relationship? If you're doubting that, what if there isn't trust and faith in the relationship? Or at least trust in that relationship. What does that say about those relationships? And also, if you're unable to speak up and say about a problem that you have, whatever that problem might be, doesn't that tell us that the reason that the other person is with me is because of what they expect from me, not because they love me, because they don't like me looking at somebody else. So if I were to walk up and say, hey, that girl I saw, put a spark in my heart, that's going to be the end of that, isn't it? Why? Because they're not prepared to hear that. Those kind of shabda, they're not prepared to hear. So what does that say? All these relationships are conditioned. For as long as the conditions prevail, ladies and gentlemen, the effect will last. Remember that. See, you have taught me something to think about. Like I said, this is a two-way street. Through your comment, something I thought was conditioned has just been confirmed. Thank you. So that was a really good thing to think about. And thank you for sharing that. But also, put raga to a side. What about dvesha? That's okay, isn't it? It's okay to be angry. It's just not okay to look at another girl. It's okay to be angry with her. That's okay. So then, okay, put raga to a side, put desire to a side. When you feel anger, how about then you make a sign? Now I feel angry. You're at the restaurant, the waiter's late. Give a sign. Now she or he will help you. Or you feel pride. Give a sign. Now he or she will help you. That's okay, isn't it? It's just the other stuff that's a no-go. Oh, how the world is so funny, isn't it? This is not a world that I want to be in. I don't think you do either. So let's get the hell out of here. Okay. So on that note, let's conclude the sermon. Before we do so, let us take a moment to transfer the merits to all those who deserve those merits. First and foremost, let us take a moment to reflect once again, as we did at the beginning, that is because of the supremely enlightened one, the perfect one, the peerless one, the unparalleled one, the unvanquished one, the supremely enlightened, blessed one, Samma Sambuddhajan Mahansi, that we have the gift of Dhamma today. It is because of him that we have the path to salvation, the path of redemption from all forms of suffering in samsara. And also, it is because of the Bhikkhu, Bhikkhunis, Upasaka, Upasikas who sacrificed their very lives, who dedicated their lives to preserving and protecting the Dhamma that we have, the Tripitaka today, to study, to analyze, to comprehend, and to help us study the Dhamma that helps us redeem ourselves from samsara. So if any of them today have been born in the woeful plane, may they be able to rejoice in these merits. May they be born through the power of these merits in the blissful plane. For any of them be born in the blissful plane, may these merits help them to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also, let us take a moment to transfer merits to all the members of the Mahasangha, wherever in the world they may be. The conventional Sangha as well as the absolute Sangha, the Sammuti and the Paramatta Sangha. So those are the Sangha who are donned in robes, as well as the Sangha who are the Atta Purisa Puggala, that is the Sotapannas, Anagamis, Sotapannas, Sakrudagamis, Anagamis and Arahatan Vahanses, whether they be lay persons or ordained persons. Wherever they may be, may these merits help them to practice the path. And also take a moment to transfer these merits to the members of the Mahasangha who have dedicated their lives and who sacrificed their lives to protect and preserve the Shasana, the Mahanayakas, the Anunayakas, and so on and so forth. As well as that, let us take a moment to transfer the merits to all the monks who are resident at the Dharmayai Obai monastery, who practice, who take the time and dedicate their lives day and night to practicing the path, to attaining the noble attainments. As well as that, let us take a moment to transfer the merits to the members of the Sangha who are resident in your local temples, in your local monasteries and nunneries and so forth. Those members of the Mahasangha who also ordained, having made a solemn promise to dedicate their lives to practicing the path to Nibbana, but today who have set time aside to attend to your needs and wants, who are there by your side, who are there with you through thick and thin to help you and support you, not just in your supra-mundane lives, but also in your worldly endeavors. So let us take a moment to transfer these merits to them as well. May all of them be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. Through the merits, through the power of these merits, may they be able to fulfill the meritorious deeds, abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also, let us take a moment to transfer merits to the Devas, Brahmas, spirits, demons, and the dead that we invited at the start of this sermon. As well as that, let us take a moment to transfer the merits to parents, teachers, siblings, uncles, aunts, nephews, and so forth. Anyone who may be a relation of yours, not just in this birth, but also your predecessors, your ancestors who have predeceased you, who today may have been born in the woeful plane, may through the power of these merits they be born in the blissful plane, and may any of them who have been born in the blissful plane through the power of these merits be able to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also, let us take a moment to transfer merits to the members of the armed forces who sacrificed their lives to protecting and preserving our motherland. It is because of them that today we are able to practice the Dhamma in peace and harmony and live with each other in peace and harmony. As well as that, also to members of the police force and also those friends and foe who lost their lives in the 30-year-old long war. Wherever they may be, wherever they may be born today, may they, through the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful plane, may these merits help them to be born in the blissful plane. For those who are born in the blissful plane, may through the power of these merits, they be able to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also, let us take a moment to transfer merits to all those men and women throughout the world who have dedicated their lives to building up this country that we all live in, protecting this country that we all live in, and developing this country, leading this country in such a way that we are able to live comfortable, satisfactory lives. It is thanks to them, otherwise it would be us in those positions having to be doing all those deeds, having to put aside time that today we have dedicated towards Nibbana. So may they be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. Through the power of these merits, may they all also be able to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to all those who helped make this event a success, either by inviting you to be here or perhaps by releasing you from your duties and responsibilities at home or at work, at your workplace, and allowing and permitting you to be here today. Your friends and family, husbands, wives, uncles, aunts, parents, children, and so on and so forth, may they all be able to rejoice in this merits. And also anyone who provided you with facilities to be able to be here today, be that in transport or perhaps by washing your clothes, ironing your clothes, so on and so forth, such that they made the facilities available to you to be here today. May they also be able to rejoice in these merits. And anyone who made this venue available to you, either by opening up these venues and making you comfortable, offering you a glass of water, offering you a seat, ushering you to a seat, making sure the fans and lights were on, and so on and so forth, and also all those people who spend time in their lives to invent and develop this technology, these microphones, these cameras, and so on and so forth, the chairs, the furniture, and so on and so forth, the vehicles that you have used to be here today, to arrive here today. May they all also be able to rejoice in these merits, because if not for them, we would not have had the facilities today to have listened to this sermon, to have understood this sermon, to comprehend this sermon, and find ourselves the ultimate bliss that we are seeking. So, through the power of these merits, may they all, if any of them have in the past been born in the woeful planes, may they, through the power of these merits, they be able to be born in the blissful plane. For all those born in the blissful plane, may through the power of these merits, they be able to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, through the power of the merits that we have all acquired today in preaching this sermon and listening to this sermon, as well as offering alms to the Mahasangha, to Tathagatan Mahanse, and so on and so forth, for anyone and everyone who made this event possible, even if by praising this deed, just by putting their hands together and offering a sadhukara, may through the power of all those merits that we have all acquired today, may these merits empower all those bhikkhu, bhikkhunis, upasaka, upasikas, people just like yourselves, who strive day and night to become Arahatun Mahanses, be able to do that in this very birth itself. May this blessed land be able to witness many hundreds of thousands of Arahatun Mahanses in this era of the Gautama Samma Sambuddhana Mahanse itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may you and I and everyone who are present here today, who have helped us make this event possible today, be able to become one of those Arahatun Mahanses in this very human birth itself, in this era of the Gautama Samma Sambuddhana Mahanse itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. The Mahasangha will be passing on their blessings to you now. Raga ginnen mide වෙත්වා ද්වේෂගින්නෙන් මිදෙත්වා මෝහගින්නෙන් මිදෙත්වා නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා මමද සියලු ලෝක සියලු සත්වයෝ නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා තුන්රුවන්ගේ සුවිසි අනන්ත මහා ගුණ බෙලෙන් සියලු ලෝක සියලු සත්වයෝම නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. May the noble triple gem be with you all always.